Alright, in this video we're going to build a basic component layout and load the form config from some corresponding endpoints. If you are an experienced developer, you will not learn anything new here, so feel free to jump over this video, or you can just check the corresponding commit in order to see what was actually done in this lesson. Otherwise, let's continue, and while we are already talking about those endpoints, let's create them right now. They will be represented as two JSON files that I'm going to create in the project's assets folder right here below. And the first file, let's name it as a user.form.json, and the second one will be something like company.form.json. At this moment, we will not be describing the exact config of the form. This is something we will do in the next video. For now, let's maybe just drop some description property where we will describe the intention of this config. And also the same I'm going to do for the user form. Here we go. Now let's find and open the component that represents a playground for this section, and here it is, and it is called dynamic forms page component. Awesome. In this component I want to create two buttons, the one which loads JSON config for the new user form, and the second one will be loading a config for the new company form. So let's go and implement it. For that I go to the component template, and here let's implement a basic layout that consists of some wrapper and a list of two buttons inside, where the first button will be responsible for loading the user form, and the second one will be loading the config for the form that will be used in order to add a new company. Now we have to somehow react when user clicks one of this button, right? And then once user clicks, we have to fire the HTTP call to the appropriate endpoint. So both buttons should have some click event listener, and because I decided to follow the reactive approach, I will be emitting a specific value in the RxJS subject, which has the name form loading trigger, and it will happen when the corresponding button is clicked. Then when the first button is clicked, I will emit a string user, and for the second one it will be a string with a value company. Great. Now we just have to go to the TS file and create this form loading trigger subject right in there component class. So somewhere here there will be a property whose value is going to be a new subject that comes from RxJS library, and the possible values of it can be a string with a value user or company. That's cool. The next step would be to create a stream from this new property and call a corresponding HTTP endpoint for it. So let's create such a property that I'm going to name form config, which is going to be an observable of some I don't know, object for now, right? And because it is observable, let's also add the $sign after the property name. Great. Now I can start creating my stream here inside the ng-onInit lifecycle hook. So I started from the trigger, and here I do the following thing. I use a switch map operator, which takes a config that is emitted by a loading trigger subject that can be either a string user or company. And here I have to perform an HTTP call to a proper endpoint. For that, I have to inject the HTTP client service into my component. So I will do that in the component constructor. Right, and there inside the switch map, I will fetch a corresponding form.json file, which I created at the beginning of this lesson. So just like that. However, as you know, observables, they are lazy and executed only when we subscribe to them. So I will go to the template and subscribe to it using the async pipe. But first, let's create some, I don't know, maybe container for it. And this container will be shown only when there is some value emitted from the form config property. And also let's maybe save the emitted value in some template variable and just print it out somewhere here inside the form element in order to see the config details. And let's also apply the JSON pipe in order to see all the keys and values from this object. Cool. Now we can go to the browser and check if everything works fine. So I go to the page and you can see that there were 2 buttons rendered, and if I click the first one, it properly loads the config for the new user form, and the same happens for the other button that loads the config for the company form, and it proves that everything works fine. The only thing I would improve is the styling. So let's get back to the VS Code and improve it. So I jump to the component CSS file like that. And here, let's change the maybe flex alignment and content justifying and set it up to flex start, because I want elements to be stuck to the left top corner. Then for the action buttons container, I will restrict the container width and make it smaller. And also I add some spacing from the right side. And besides that, for the dynamic form container, I will apply some, padding in order to have some spacing as well. And now let's check how it looks now. And as you can see, it looks way better. So my action buttons are located on the left side and the form will be rendered right next to it. So everything looks awesome so far, and we are done for this tutorial. So let's move forward to the next one.